and that. And then, ooh, what's this one? But I walked like across, and then I walked back, and I got back by like 6:45. I did it all in like 25 minutes in that. For just getting some quick food, something to snack on. Oh, oh. Really? Interesting. That was funny. So there won't be a siren. The telegram went off. It said like, okay, so somewhere like 7 in the morning, I was awake, but I didn't hear it. It says like air alarm, head for cover, 7:23. Uh, Anxiety relief, be careful, 7:48, which means it's over. Then just like now, when you heard the telegram message, like it says, threat of shelling, go to shelter. That's what the translation says. And then
Wow.
then the next one it goes, we apologize. There was a technical error. There is no threat of shelling.
I love
So
it.
either something got triggered in the system because I know they don't have someone manning this. It's something automated. They have a feed somewhere
Right.
and it gets triggered by whatever alert and that. But because like I've seen this the siren thing, like whether it's an app or whether it's Telegram or whatever, the thing will go off consistently without question at like even 3 to 4 to 5 in the morning. And I know it's not manned by someone, it's just
Right.
automated. So it's always interesting in that way. Let me see if I was talking to a friend Bogdan. Let me see if he didn't even see my message yet. He hasn't been on Viber either. So he's been last on at 2:35 and it's 6 p.m. now. Let's see if he's awake. Well, I know he's awake, but I mean off work. Let's see. Well, maybe it'll just be me and you, but I don't know. We'll see. It's also funny too. Me planning to go east and that I have like these little delays, not serious delays, but basically like I'm thinking of two things, like I should get this, I should get that just in case.
Right.
And then ironically, there's a girl that I did photos for, and that the one that I was such a bad guy and taking bikini photos of like a year ago, and that I told her I was going to Kyiv, and then I was gonna go further east, and she goes, when? And I go, oh, I don't know, maybe in the next week. And she goes, oh, I'm going too. And I go, oh, okay, maybe we could just ride the train together there. Because I was thinking like, what I was thinking was is I'll buy her ticket for like $12. I'll have my ticket. And on the way or before or after or during, we'll do some shooting in Kyiv because that's what she's doing. And the that simple of an idea doesn't seem to work, even when you explain it. I sit there and say, like, look, there's like 3 seats here, and the time is at like noon to go there, and you arrive at 7 p.m. So it's a 6.5 hour train to the capital, which is not bad because that's like 400 miles in 6 hours and that. And but what happens is she wants to go by coupe, which is not a higher class, it's actually a lower class. She wants to go by coupe instead of intercity. But intercity will take 6 or 7 hours, and it's like being in an airplane, and that it's air conditioned, it's this, uh, everything else like that. the coupe is nice, but for a different thing. If you're doing a long travel, you have the seat that becomes a bed. So you can just fall asleep and everything else and all of that. But this is the problem. There is no coupe seats available. There's only intercity. And I say there's no coupe seats. And she goes, no, there's got to be coupe seats. And I go, no, there's not any coupe seats. In short, I didn't end up buying 2 or 3 tickets because she wants to deny the purchase of the tickets. So in short, the Ukrainian girl makes what I think is very simple. Just buy the tickets. We go at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. She complicates it. Funny thing.
That's funny.
But it just, the thing about it is I looked at it this way. She was going to be going to Kyiv maybe a day before me or a day after, and I would be going to Kyiv. And I thought, like, why not go all at the same time? It's all fine. And I can go whenever I want. I was just pegging it to them and that.
Right.
But it's just funny at the end of the day. But like, yeah. But who knows? Oh, did I send you that hemp photo that we in the store of or did I or no?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Wait.
You can share the screen over if you want. I think I got
well,
it.
One second. I'll look through the photo thing. When you're asking me about if it's a weed friendly area. And I think it depends how you look at the glass, but like they have some kind of hair gel or something that's cannabis.
Wow.
Like if you see it real close like that.
Oh yeah. I can see a little bit. Yes, I can see the cannabinoids. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hair protox cannabis. I would
Interesting.
assume it's some type of gel because it's partly in English or hemp seed oil, keratin, vitamin complex, blah, blah. Maybe it's like a shampoo, but still like they have this in the store, like that's a 3-minute walk away and that, but I'm sure it's also maybe a little, I'm sure there's some truth in it, but I'm sure also it's a little bit of a advertising gimmick, but who knows?
Oh no, yeah. That's the thing with cannabis. I have no problems with it, but you're right. Sometimes there's how you just explained it, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's the oh, I got to sneeze in a second. It's the younger generation thing. Like that. But yeah, like I've spent like almost a month or two like backing up all my photos, things from Ukraine and before and that. And God, I never thought it would take so long to back up, like almost like about 50,000 photos and almost like say about 3,500 videos. And this is not like 5, 10, 20-minute videos. It's some of them are 2 minutes, some of them are a minute, some of them are 15 seconds, some are 5 minutes, some are 10 minutes, some are 20. And it's just all over the board, but it's like six or so years, something like that, like 6 years worth of like just photos and videos and I'm near the end of it after 2 months. It should have taken, as we learn about Ukrainian bread day today.
That's cool.
Like 50 cents, 50 cents.
Well, your food definitely has better ingredients. Here in the U.S., we're packed with GMOs here. I mean, all of our food is just packed with it.
But you know something, correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, it's Michigan where I'm from, but I don't think, like, say, it's basically a baguette in that it's just a smaller version. But I don't think you can buy them so commonly in the US. I'm sure it exists, don't get me wrong, but because I know they make it at the store and that, because there's a whole, it's a funny thing at Kroger's in Michigan. Like, you know, they'll just have donuts. They'll have donuts and what else? Like some kind of sugary thing in that. And then, um, like here, they have a mix of breads, like it's like a homemade type of pizza type of thing. They'll have like a hachapuri and that, which is a Georgian breakfast type of thing. Um, I won't share the screen, but I'll do another tilt over for the phone. The hachapuri I like. It's not Ukrainian, it's Georgian and that, but it's very filling. If it's made correctly, you can eat that, only that, in one day, and you will be filled in that. You just you won't want you. I mean, you won't want to like eat like a massive meal. So 1 second, let me see here. Let me find this little thing. But like it's the hachapuri, like it's basically like bread. It's a circle of bread, and then you have eggs and cheese or meat mixed into it. So it's basically like an omelet with bread surrounding it.
That
And
sounds
that.
good.
And it's like if you eat it, I guess, you know, like at the right time, you won't need to eat the rest of the day.
Man, that's what I need.
Okay, so it should be right around here. Ah, okay, here we go. Like this. Uh, like like that. And that it's just like it's a mix of it. And in this case, it was like mushrooms. And then the Dutch guy just had like an egg in his. So you can mix it around with different types of food, but if you eat it once like that, and the store creates their own kind, but it's not as like flavor tasting. But yeah, just like that, and everything else. But trying to think. I wish one of the Ukrainian friends, other than Yuri, because I'm sure Yuri gets busy at different times, but I wonder if any of them will reply. Let's see. Although the friend of mine, Bogdan, is no fan of Trump. He believes he's not Democrat, but he's not Republican. But
It's
it's
hilarious.
but he knows I'm pro-Trump. He doesn't have a problem with me. He just keeps going, Putin and Trump, Putin and Trump, Putin and Trump. Blah, 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 blah. He does kind of irritate me, but I've been making jokes with him, actually bad Jewish jokes. Not that I'm anti-Jewish. You know, he um, sometimes they create jobs in Ukraine. I learned this from him and from some other Ukrainians different times, but the how do I want to say this? He found some work but it's like tedious, monotonous work. And you only earn between 1 penny to like 10 or 20 cents per job. And this is all in Ukraine, but it's Ukrainian jobs that are farmed out either from the US or somewhere else. So basically, like he should leave a comment on a video about something and he'll get paid 10 or 20 cents for it. And like just little things like that. And I started joking with him. That that he's like a real Jew. He's like pinching together every penny. It's a real bad joke. But then I started telling him like, "Are you earning any shekels yet?" Which is the Israeli currency. Just really bad humor in jokes and that. But regardless is like, and he was telling me, he's like, no, Ricky, it's good money. If you think about it, in a month I'll have $300 or $400. And I go, yeah, $300 or $400 and like 12 hours a day. Like just click it. Like he was telling me, sometimes you just gotta click something a lot. Sometimes you just gotta write a comment. I'm sitting there like going like, God, no one would do these jobs in the US. No one. It's like it's just like tedious, dull work.
Oh man,
And
that's fun.
that's like what they would hire an Indian for somewhere in a remote village. No offense to any Indians watching, not Native Americans. But either or of it. It just, oh, I don't know. Some like, but he was for it just because he's sitting at home and he's doing nothing, so he might as well do something in that. But just one of them things. Oh, I don't know. Can you hear the kids out in the background still or no?
I actually did hear.
Yeah,
I did hear the children.
yeah. Oh yes, they're running around or whatever. I can't see from where I'm at, but
It's it sounds like vacation Bible school for me. So it's just
well, it's just like that
yeah,
and everything else. But it's a relaxed little time. But I'm just trying to think like, what would be real interesting? What I should do in that when I go to Kiev, I should make some short videos, send them to you, and then like, because I don't know where I will be at for next week. Maybe
right,
I'll be back in Kalush by that time. I'm not sure. But I should do some little quick edit videos, send them to you, and then you can fit them into the video side of everything and just all that type of stuff. I'm just trying to
right,
think.
right. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And,
Most
and
definitely.
the curse thing, that's like the most mysterious thing. You know, I know that they're doing reports on it in Ukrainian, but I don't really watch Ukrainian news. But it's a thing that like if you listen to it right now, I don't think you'll ever get the truth. Everything will be spin. The truth will come out after,
Right. No.
as opposed to in the moment. That's what I think. But CNN, I saw CNN or some guy from CNN like did a little bit of a going into curse with the military and that, and they were driving around and there was like some little interview and all of this. Maybe I should send you the video because it's in my watch history. If you want to share the video into the feed. That 1 second, let me find it. But it was really interesting because Well, the guy was speaking Russian, the American CNN
Right.
guy, and because I can usually, let's say, if I hear like 15 or 20 words, at least say 10, I can usually pick out what words are Russian and what words are Ukrainian because they use a lot of the same words. Never. Never. 20. Oh, yeah. Oh, it, uh, but yeah, that was my friend Sergey that's out in the east that just messaged. I asked him if he was off work, and he says never 24/7. Oh no, but I think
I
he
like.
means it seriously though. And then he's sending me some photos. Yeah, Russian army. Oh yeah, he's sending me a few photos.
Sweet.
But it, I don't know, funky. But like that. 1 second, let me think here. Let me get my watch history. Let's see. Let's see. Uh, Shorts view all. Okay, so let me send this to you on Telegram, and then me.
I'll share over.
Yeah, because
Here we
it's
go.
like a 5 minute video or so. Let me see.
Okay.
Second. Oh, some Jared guy's online. Wonder who he is. But but yeah, I just sent the link.
This one right here.
Yeah.
No, hold on. That was for me. Oh, I'm in something else here. I'm in.
Oh yeah, I can tell you're in something.
There we go. Right here, the CNN one.
We've got a view of the war between Russia and Ukraine unlike any that we've seen until now from occupied Russian soil. Ukrainian forces are now holding parts of Russian territory. President Zelensky says they've taken control of a Russian town about 6 miles across the border. Our Nick Payton-Walsh was able to gain some of the first access to Ukrainian-held Russia today and witness their control over the town and the intensity of the fight. CNN was accompanied by the Ukrainian military, which reviewed the video you're about to see without sound prior to its release for operational security reasons. That said, they had no editorial control over what you're about to see. Here's Nick's report, and we want to warn you, some of what you're about to see is graphic.
This was never in Putin's plan, but still, into Russia we cross with Ukrainian forces moving forwards. Through the border post they destroyed in their surprise assault 10 days ago. As we get closer towards Soja, we can see more smoke on the horizon, but still it's bizarrely calm on this road. And pause a moment in these open fields and remember, this is the Cold War superpower. Unguarded, open, and never expecting when Russian President Vladimir Putin launched his war of choice 2 years ago to be invaded back. A Russian dead soldier still in the road. Ukraine only claimed here a day ago. Well, not even. The statue of Lenin is unscathed.
What was that?
Go back like 10 or 20 seconds because I wanted to explain something like about with the culture in the houses.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when it was showing the houses when they were driving by, it's like 10 or 20 seconds because it's almost the same houses in Ukraine.
Here, this Ukrainian assault.
There's like
claimed
different
here
styles.
a day ago. Years ago, to be invaded back. A Russian. Well, not even. The statue of Lenin is unscathed here. This Ukrainian assault. The statue of Lenin.
But all these buildings
to be invaded back.
A Russian. Ukraine. All of them are. In that because like how they're built and everything, like how do I want to put it? Like when we grew up, you know, we had this idea of like what the Soviet Union was or how it looked, etc. But what's funky is like all of these little houses and buildings, or maybe it's a little bit of a storage building or a store or a magazine, basically Kroger's, or like like a 7-Eleven type of gas station type of thing. Not that it's a gas station, but something like it in comparable size. This is the normal, or at least the average, the median average of houses that are in Ukraine and Belarus and in Russia and everything and that. And the thing about it is if you look at it, other than it being maybe shot at or something else, it's not a building that's like falling apart or 100 years old or like this or that. It's not in disrepair. And it's one of these things, when you travel, you always think that like, well, where is the third world? Where is like these, like, how to put, we would think of it as poor people, but it's not that they're poor. It's that they have a different like style of how they build their houses or this or that or whatever. But like most of the buildings, most of it is usually either, built in the past 10 or 20 years or remodeled in that time and modernized. But this is the thing. When we're in the US, we think of that as the third world. But when you actually look at it, it does not look so horrible. That's what the irony of it all is, in my opinion. But go ahead and keep playing.
Dead soldier still in the road. Ukraine only claimed here a day ago. Well, not even the statue of Lenin is unscathed here. This Ukrainian assault, so persistent, and Russia, despite its sense of history, its sort of past as being so impregnable, completely unable to push the Ukrainians out here. The sound of small arms fire we can still hear, so clearly there is a bid for the Russians to push back, but it simply isn't working, and the humiliation for Putin endures. Days ago, locals had honoured their war dead, but none since the Nazis led Russia to face occupation. You can see the damage that's been done to the street here from the intense fight that raged. Still clearly active fighting happening here. A sign. In the basement here live peaceful people, no soldiers. Ina, 68, says 60 civilians are there.
Ваши ребята привезли коров много. Еда есть.
Just like we've seen in multiple Ukrainian towns over the last 2 years, here the locals trying to find some shelter from the war around them. Stanislav shows his grey.
Это же не жизнь. Это существование. Это не жизнь.
In the dark, huddled like so many Ukrainians now, the infirmed, isolated, begging for calm.
А теперь не знаю, чем закончится. Хотя бы дорогой хорошим, чтобы мы мирно жили. Нам не надо ничего. Только остылик мой, я не кажу. Тяжело очень.
Day, night, light, dark, news or blackout all blur into one.
Ни новости никакие. Что происходит вокруг нас? Не верю. А вот как с ними?
Yefimov is over 90 and wants to leave to Ukraine, but there is no route out, he says.
Вы только первый год пришли сюда.
Понятно.
А коридор пока невозможно. Ой, там у меня и дочка, и племянники, и внуки. И я-то русский, они, мужья у них все украинцы.
Again, ordinary streets that never guessed of their destruction or newfound fame days ago. Vacant in the storm around them. Normal life here vanished in a hurry, leaving store floors as barracks. And Nina, 74, out looking for a pharmacy for her medication.
Я нет. Если бы я хотела, я бы выехала. А почему я должна выехать? Там, где я 50 лет живу. Здесь у меня дочь на кладбище, мама. Ну, как на Украине, я живу на своей земле. А я не знаю, чья это земля еще, и вообще не понимаю ничего.
It is a war that keeps turning the world order on its head, where wreckage that lined Ukraine's fields now haunts Russia's. Ukrainians learn to paint over their road signs to confuse the invaders, but still here, the signs ask God to protect and save Russia. That was Putin's job. It is not clear when he's coming back. No, Anderson, it's clear that Ukraine does have the ability to project force pretty far outside of Sujda. We're not quite clear why there was so little drone or aviation threat from the Russians inside that town. We were told because the main fighting was using all that capacity from Russia further away from where we were. But we also saw, too, the volume of equipment and resources Ukraine is still pouring into that part of Russia that it's taken. And clearly the trip we were on was designed to show how much in control they are and relatively calm they are in Sujda itself. But it is not all good news here. This surprise assault has certainly brought them international attention and the idea that they're on their front foot. But elsewhere in the east, near Pokrovsk, a vital Ukrainian military hub, they're seeing Russia getting closer and closer, potentially within 3 or 4 miles of the outskirts of that key area. And indeed, if Russia were able to use its artillery on that hub, it would be a significant loss for the Ukrainian operations in the east, in the Donbass. So give and take, certainly, but being no doubt at all, what we're seeing in the Kursk region is Ukraine boldly pushing forwards, and it's fair to say, not about to give up anytime soon. Anderson?
Nick Payton-Walsh, thank you. Be careful.
Now, to give some perspective on the side, that where Sumy is in like the center north. Then when he's talking about Pokrovsk, which I was in Pokrovsk 2 years ago, Pokrovsk is like totally east, and that it's like center a little bit south and east, and that's where it is. So they're like in totally different directions. I actually thought of something too. If you wanna, it'll be kind of a little bit like a historical video tutorial. Did you ever watch anything from a YouTube channel like Caspian Report, or never heard of it?
I don't think I've heard of it.
Ah, okay. I'll send you another video. This will be a little bit more educational, less me talking. But the Caspian Report YouTube channel does a lot of interesting geopolitics explaining. And the guy that runs the channel is from Azerbaijan. It's Azerbaijan or right next to Azerbaijan. I can't remember. But he lives there in that. He's completely there. But he's got an interesting mind for geopolitics because he has the same view of everything that like I experienced in my traveling and how I experienced it is almost similar to his, and I never met the guy. And he explained things that I understood, but as a foreigner traveling and so the way that I understood it is that's how I kind of have somewhat, I'm foreign, but I have a local's understanding to an extent of certain things. And he also explained what his idea was, the Russian mindset, which I think is spot on. He explained it the way a Russian would explain it. And that I'll send you the video too. It's 13 minutes in that, but it will be interesting in that for anyone to listen to it in a way. It's very informational in that. I get the Telegram, by the way.
Here we go.
The moderns of technology.
One of the very foundations of political science is the principle that geography determines destiny. In the same way that the British Isles determined the naval culture and the frontier affected the American culture, Russia too can be defined by its geographic characteristics. And the most obvious element of Russia's geography is its enormous size. But the truth is that Russia's size is both an advantage as well as a liability. You see, the very core of the Russian Federation, the Moscow region, is simply indefensible. There are no mountainous ranges, no rivers or oceans, there are no swamps or deserts, only the Moscow forests and the inhospitable climate can be described as a geographic obstacle. The only thing the Russians can do in event of an invasion is drag out the war and bleed the enemy out. It is for this reason that Russia's history is largely about surviving invasion after invasion. These centuries-long experiences left a deep mark in the Russian culture and psychology. And due to these experiences, the Russian leadership became obsessed with security and survival. Welcome to Caspian Report by me, Shirvan. For more information, visit the social media pages. One of the most important moments in Russian history was the Great Stand at Ugra River in the year 1480. This event paved the way for a united and independent Russian state. Prior to this, the Mongols and Tatars had ruled the southern and eastern portion of modern Russia. Most of the Russian principalities were either vassals to the Golden Horde or they paid an annual tribute. The standoff at Ugra River ended centuries-long Mongol and Tatar dominance. But the most decisive era of Russian history was yet to begin. And if it wasn't for the Mongols, Tatars or Timurids from the east, it was the Teutonic Knights, the Swedish, the Polish or the Germans from the west. And if that wasn't painful enough, either the Persians or Ottomans would push from the south. There were, after all, no geographic barriers to hold off an enemy invasion. This meant that the core of the new Russian Empire, the former Grand Principality of Moscow, was extremely vulnerable to a coordinated attack from multiple sides.
Yeah.
Okay, so when obviously you see the Polish, the Baltics, the Swedish, etc.
Right.
Then you see the Tatars and the Cossacks in the corner, which is Ukraine. The Tatars were Turkish, and the Cossacks are what they consider the Ukrainians in that, or at least before they were Ukrainian types. But go ahead and keep playing. Now, I was just giving some context to the video.
Right. No, yeah. Thank you.
So the Tsar of all Russias, Ivan the Terrible, developed a new strategy in the 16th century. He made up for what Russia lacked in geographic barriers with enormous buffer zones. The strategy was simple yet effective: bleed the enemy invasion through attrition and attacks on the supply lines. By the year 1552, Ivan had conquered the Tatar kingdom of Kazan, and this was after the Great Stand of 1480, the most decisive moment in Russian history, as it paved the way for Russia to transform itself into an empire. You see, conquering the strategic city of Kazan allowed the Russians to use the Volgograd River as a major supply line in their expansion to the south. So in due time, Russia conquered the other Tatar kingdoms and their capitals. One by one they fell: Samara, Saratov, Sarasu, now known as Volgograd, and finally Astrakhan. The Volgograd expansion established Russia as a true empire, and it was such a success that the Russians built the St. Basil Cathedral to commemorate the conquest of Kazan and Astrakhan. In less than a century, the Russian lands united and conquered the Tatar kingdoms and finally formed an empire. This was a relatively quick expansion and was perceived as a threat by its neighbors, and this era of expansion was followed by a period of total war. In the next 2 centuries, the Russian Empire engaged in wars against the Baltics, the Swedish, the Danish, and the Polish. This was followed by another series of wars against the Crimean Tatars, Ukrainian Cossacks, and the Ottoman Empire. And this was again followed by even more wars and more conflicts. In some of the military engagements, Russia emerged victorious, and in the other engagements, the Russian state barely survived. Most of these wars were fought over in the North European plains, and since there was no geographic barriers, every war was extremely expensive in terms of human lives, but every war was also decisive. After all, Russia had nothing to fall back on. So the leadership of the empire decided to establish new strategic cities in the eastern portion of the empire. By early 18th century, the Russian Tsar Peter the Great further expanded his empire in all directions. He argued that in order to minimize the risk of an invasion and guarantee the survival of the state, immense expansion and buffer zones were required. Russia's new backup strategy depended on large portions of lands. These lands provided Russia with the capability to withdraw, and so it was essentially conquer or be conquered. And since this was the only viable strategy the Russians had, they expanded the empire unlike anything before in history. They mobilized the entire society and dedicated a large segment of their culture to the survival of the state. In the Far East, Russia only stopped expanding when it reached a strong geographic barrier such as the Ural Mountainous Range, the Altai Mountains, Lake Baikal, the Sayan Mountains, the Stanovoy Range, and the Sea of Okhotsk. These barriers made it extremely difficult to implement a land invasion into Russia from the Far East. When the Russians expanded to the southeast, they used the divide and rule strategy and succeeded in conquering Central Asia and the strategic geographic positions such as the Fergana Valley, the Tinshan Mountainous Range, and the Karakum Desert. These newly acquired territories protected Russia from any Asian power. In Russia's southern expansion, they conquered the strategic cities of Grozny, Baku, and Tbilisi, and this allowed Russia to establish a strong foothold in the Caucasus and the Caspian region. The search for geographic barriers continued also in the western direction. Here, the Russians pushed until they had conquered the Crimean Peninsula, the Baltics, and the Carpathian Mountains. All of these conquests took centuries to accomplish and came at a great cost to all the sides. But by going on the offensive for the first time in their history, the Russians ensured some kind of safety for their empire. But one major problem still endured. No matter how much territory the Russians conquered from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, they never found a geographic barrier for the North European plain. This vast open region became the Achilles heel of Russia, as it was exploited by European conquerors like Napoleon.
Hey, Ricky, I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Have you heard of the Mackinder theory?
Say it again?
The Mackinder theory. It was a theory. It was written in 1910, and it was, well. Let's listen to more of this video. We'll get back to that because maybe I'll pull that up or something because it's very interesting. But it was in 1910. Here we go.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And Hitler. And the only reason Russia survived these devastating wars was because of their backup strategy of withdrawal. So anyway, with the exception of the Northern European plain, the Russian Empire became more and more secure. However, the strategy of expansion and establishing buffer zones brought forth a new dilemma. Many of the newly conquered territories had different ethnic and religious populations that were not loyal to Moscow. The alignment of these native populations were continuously manipulated by other regional empires. In essence, the new territories and its populations became a liability for Moscow. So to incorporate these territories into the empire, Russia drastically centralized the government and from there implemented various demographic transformations through methods such as mass deportations, genocides, large-scale assimilation of non-Russians, and colonization. In short, the Russian Empire changed the ethnic and religious layout of most of the newly conquered territories. But even with these demographic policies, Russia could not fully erase or pacify the native populations, so as a solution the new Russian government established a huge internal security network as to enforce central control. This would later on lay the foundation of the modern Russian intelligence network, and it became an essential part in keeping Russia together. Furthermore, having this enormous size of a country required an equally enormous standing army. The intelligence network and the size of the army obviously drained a large portion of the treasury. But to add fuel to fire, the financial drainage did not end there. By establishing and colonizing new strategic cities in the Ural, Siberia, and the Far East, Russia had to deal with a new fundamental problem: feeding its eastern populations. What you have to understand here is that even though Russia has plenty of arable lands and is statistically capable of feeding its population, the country has a hard time dealing with the logistics and transports of these goods. Most of the Ural and Siberian cities have long winters and short summers. This means that cities like Yekaterinburg, Kurgan, Tyumen, Tomsk, Kemerovo, Novokuznetsk, and many more simply cannot feed their own populations, but are instead dependent on importing goods. But most of these central and far eastern cities have huge distances between them. Just traveling from one city to another city is as far as to travel from Paris to Berlin, but doing so under the harsh Siberian climate and a terrible infrastructure. For example, the Trans-Siberian Railroad is the only railway connecting Siberia to the rest of Russia, and thus is the lifeline of Central and Far Eastern Russia. When you look at the map and you see the distances between Yekaterinburg to Omsk, to Novosibirsk, to Krasnoyarsk, you get the idea of the genuine size of Russia and how sparsely populated it is, and how extremely expensive it is to keep everything running. So in essence, one of the main historic and modern problems of Russia is the transportation costs of goods from Western Russia to Central Russia. The distance simply makes the goods unaffordable, and without sufficient food, these cities could not exist. But despite the high costs and maintenance, the strategic importance of these cities is central to the long-term security of Russia. After all, the Ural is Russia's backup plan. If ever the western portion of Russia were to be occupied, the Russian government would fall back to the Ural cities and continue the fight from there. In short, these central cities are essential to Russia's long-term security. And so this whole predicament gives Russia two options: either abandon these strategic cities and make the remainder of Russia prosper, or take on the burdens and remain poor but have a backup plan. Historically, the Russian leadership went for the second option, and what happened is that Moscow subsidized for all of the transportation costs and made the food affordable. But this also meant that all of the burdens of the central and far eastern cities fell on the shoulders of Moscow. The Kremlin has been dealing with this problem since the 19th century. And as time passed by, these measures, the centralized government, the new colonized central and far eastern cities, the enormous standing army and its vast security apparatus turned Russia into an authoritarian state. But had the country failed in any of these categories, the empire would have been torn apart by nationalist movements, urban starvation, mass migration, etc. After all, geography determines destiny. This isn't meant to excuse Russia for its wrongdoings, but it does explain why the country never achieved any form of freedom, democracy, or free market economy in its history, and is unlikely to achieve any of these in the future. In the next Caspian report, we will explore the modern geopolitical interests of the Russian Federation and how this determines Russia's behavior. For now, thank you for watching Caspian Report by me, Shirvan and Saul.
Yeah, and that's the video of it. I sent you another video, but you can watch it later. It's the demographic thing. But the demographic thing is interesting. And the reason why it's more interesting is because the video was made like either 2010 or 2011. And he talks about how the population demographic for where the population of Russia is going, even though like around 2010 or around there, it was at 150 million. The projection, which I think the Ukrainian war had something to do with this.
Right.
The projection is by like something like by 2050, there will be only 50 million Russians. That the country is essentially dying out very slowly in that. And that in a way, I think, you know, if you factor in little side things, watch it later, like in your own time. But that I think factors in to the Ukraine thing, because basically, you know, it kind of prolongs things over a period of time, not to take the full country, but to take because where the war is, all of that in the east, where it's Donetsk and Donbass, that's oil rich, that's mineral rich, it's coal, it's everything else in that. Like, there's not really a tactical advantage to take the whole country of Ukraine. The tactical advantage is to take what is important to Ukraine and remove it from the table, and keep it in a Russian orbit, besides language or whatever. But that's my opinion from what I understand.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up something real quick. It was talking about the Matt Kinder's theory, because and kind of what you were just talking about in some of my own research. And I've been researching the NED, so the National Endowment for Democracy, and it led me to Matt Kinder's theory. So I wrote in one of my reports the application of Matt Kinder's heartland theory to past and present geopolitical significance of Central Asia. So this was written back in 1910. Here's a brief summary that I wrote about it. It said, today the political discourse is heavily centered around geopolitics, first introduced by Sir Halford J. Mackinder, the founding father of modern geopolitics in the early 20th century. His contributions to international relations have been seen as a resurgent in recent years, particularly his heartland theory, which continues to provide valuable insights into the geopolitics of Eurasian continent. Mackinder's theory posits that the heartland's central geographical location within Eurasia offers significant geographic, strategic, and geoeconomic advantages to any state that controls the region, allowing it to influence its adversaries effectively. Historical evidence of Russia's dominance in the heartland, coupled with its status as a superpower, supports and illustrates the relevance of Mackinder's theory in understanding current geopolitical dynamics.
Yeah,
that's what I thought was an interesting find. So
in a way that sounds, I know of it, but in a different way. You know, there's a theory, they call it the world island.
Right.
There's a theory of that basically if you control the massive chunk of land, that's the area that will win. But if you control the seas, that's the supremacy part, which the US does this.
Right.
He has the Caspian Report guy has a video on this too.
Cool.
It might be from the same thing. There's a lot of videos that he did years ago that I remember in some little bit and chunk, and he still does videos today. But he even did it over the Ukraine thing, and he actually explained the Russian logistics thing, because in total, the American logistics for how they supply the military is more modern. It's more adaptable, as opposed to like how Russia supplies it, which is like linear. It's like a line, and if you
Right.
somehow mess up the line, then it all gets all messed up. And but he has a video explaining that too, that basically, even though Russia in a short term or a medium term will look like they're winning, but in the long term they would lose if they went on a total offensive, because they can't, Russia can't like support a massive logistical thing for a long period of time unless it has a massive cost to it on another end, either manpower or something else. And there's a video on that, but
Right.
I'm sure you have to get going, as you were saying.
Oh yeah, I was thinking that we could pick back up next time, right? What there's the Russians, that the link you sent YouTube, we can pick up there next time. I'll watch that also on my own time to also gather further understanding, and we can just continue down this road. I mean, it's an interesting stuff. I mean, you bring a lot of good insight too. I mean, there's anything you want to add before we do close out with any more insight,
No,
that would be awesome.
there's nothing that I can add per se, but it would be more, like I said, I remember it in bits and chunks.
Right.
But I remember what videos explained what and how I learned it, or I learned it and confirmed it via a YouTube video that I later saw. One of those things. So it's like that. So but either way, we can pick it up next week on Friday or so.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Absolutely. All right, man. Another good chat. I appreciate it, Ricky.
No problem. Have fun.
Like always. All right, man. Till next time.
Yeah, sure. Take it easy.
Yeah, you too, Ricky. All right, man. Bye.